Honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister and commend her for her work in this legislation. As she has said, divorce proceedings have been combative, adversarial, and often the children are treated as though they're the spoils of war, and with devastating consequences for the whole family. I welcome the focus on the best interests of the child and the way threats to children and protecting children from harm is given more clarity. The list is not exhaustive, but it is good. My concern is in what the courts do, and of course the Minister is familiar, of course, with her act that Section 7.82 gives information to the court to be aware of when they're making orders. I very briefly, Mr. Speaker, because I know questions are brief, I know two mothers who have suffered the loss of their children because a court didn't believe them. Alison Azer is a friend of mine, she became a friend through the trials and tribulations of her non-custodial ex-husband taking 4 children out of her reach and secreting them in Iraq and then Syria and then different locations. She begged the court not to let her ex-husband have passports for the children. He convinced the court they were only going on vacation to Europe. Even more tragic is Sarah Cotton's case. I met her at her daughter's funeral. 2 daughters killed Christmas Day. She had tried to convince the court that her non-custodial former partner was not sufficiently stable and could be a threat to the children. But because he hadn't ever shown any signs of being about to hurt them, they were given Christmas Day visitation to their father. I don't know that this legislation could not be improved in this area. A positive obligation on the court, almost the way we would describe the precautionary principle, that even, and it's difficult because it's adversarial, that a former partner might invent claims that their ex-partner represented a threat to the child. But I think we might want to strengthen the obligations of the court under 7.82 to do more than consider whether there's a civil protection order or a child protection order or likely to be one, and direct the court not just to make inquiries, but to direct the court to specific things the court must consider, such as the possibility of a former partner taking children out of the vicinity, out of Canada altogether, or worse, doing serious violence or killing their own children.
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for her commentary and speaking about some personal cases and situations that she is familiar with. And I would say, and I don't believe there was a specific question there, but in terms of what we're doing broadly with respect to this piece of legislation is we're wanting to put in as much information as we can to provide the courts with specific, with judges with specific factors to consider when they're looking at the best interests of the child. I think one of the primary considerations or factors would be for a judge, for he or she to listen to the child in appropriate circumstances in terms of where the child wants to go. We're working, as I indicated, in terms of the international conventions and their I mean, it's currently underway, and we're working with the provinces and territories with respect to that around the protection of the child and how that will assist in terms of enforcement in across international jurisdictions. But I hear my colleague on that. I hear of individual circumstances and cases that are egregious, and if there is a way that we can have a conversation about how that can be addressed, I'm not sure in thinking about it right now, but I'm happy to continue to have that conversation. So we make sure that individual children do not, as much as possible, fall through the cracks. And obviously every case is different, but I'm happy to have that conversation to see how we can protect children in the face of violence and being taken out of jurisdictions and the consequences that result of some of those situations.
Alors,